to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Dr. Donna. Remember, I'm so happy that you have kept your appointment. Remember, you have an appointment with your doctor every single Thursday at 6:30 p.m. If you are not already a part of Talking with Dr. Donna's network or a part of our generational health network, we say, please take the time to go on over to my YouTube channel if you're not watching on YouTube and subscribe, and then hit the bell icon so that you know when I'm live, which is, once again, every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. So today we're going to just do a quick little update on the flu, little update on a virus called RSV, and an update on what we need to do during this time, because I know so many of you think that the pandemic is over, and it is better. Okay, so I'm not going to say it's not better, but it is definitely better. But there are some precautions that we still want you to take that I want to make sure that you're still aware of. Okay. So before we get there, let's talk a little bit about this month is Native Heritage Month. And we want to give a shout out to all of those who are Native Americans, and we are, on their land right here, especially the Ohlone people, the only tribe. And I always tell people that my family, my dad is from Oklahoma, which is Choctaw Indian Nation. And so I always have, since birth, have had a very fondness for our Native American culture. And so I want to say thank you and give honor to them this month for Native American Heritage Month. All right. So if you know someone who is Native Heritage, make sure you tell them Happy Native Heritage Month. As you know, on Talking with Dr. Donna, before we're Talking with Dr. Donna, our goal is to build a generational health network. And what that means is that for generational health, we are building the opportunity for us to start talking about health and wellness all the way from birth, all the way up to our most senior family members. And because as long as you're alive, there are things that you need to know about your health. And when you're born as a child, you want to make sure that you start talking about health because you want to build healthy habits in your children. We don't want to wait until we're 15 or 20 or 30 to start thinking about how do we improve our health. In Generational Health Network, we're starting right now. And there's 4 pillars of health that we discuss when we're talking about about generational health. And that is number 1, we think about mental and emotional health because the mind and the body are connected. Our second pillar is spiritual health because we know studies show that when you believe in a higher being, that improves your health. And that is not a religion base, that is a spiritual base. And then our third pillar is physical health, which of course we talk about a lot and it is important, but want to make sure that you understand that there's other pillars and other types of health that we focus on. And our fourth pillar is our environmental health. And so often we don't think about our environment, but our environment has all sorts of impacts on our health, from the water we drink, from the soil that our homes are built on, from the exposures to various chemicals that are in the air that are around your home. So environmental health is really, really important. So that's why it's one of our pillars in Generational Health Network. And hopefully that you, being watching this show, will become a part of our network just by sharing the messages that you're hearing here tonight and letting people know how they can improve their health. All right. So let's talk about the flu. And in the flu, I don't know why my screen is not advancing like it's advancing here. So I'll share the slides if they don't continue to advance. But let's talk about the flu. So we know that right now we're moving into this time of what's called a triple pandemic. Question mark, are we in a triple pandemic? We have COVID, we're marching into flu season, and we also have this virus called respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, that you may have been hearing a lot about. Now, RSV has been around for decades. I remember as a resident, that was the big thing. We had so many kids coming in with RSV. How do we treat kids with RSV? And now we're seeing RSV even in older kids, which is a little bit different than what we saw, 20 years ago when I was a resident. It was a little bit different in terms of our age. But influenza and RSV cases are starting to surge across the country. My colleagues on the East Coast and in the South are seeing tons of children getting RSV, and we're now starting to see that here in the Bay Area. We're seeing more and more kids diagnosed with this respiratory syncytial virus. So it's surging a little bit earlier, and we're thinking that it might be a little bit more widespread. And one of those reasons why it's widespread is because last year and the year before, we didn't really hear too much about it while we were in the pandemic. And I think that was primarily because we were wearing masks. How many times does Dr. Donna have to say masks are wonderful, masks are great, masks are protective, they will help you. And so now that we've taken our masks off, we're starting to see a surge in influenza, flu, and respiratory syncytial virus. And of course, we're continuing to still see COVID. Like I said, RSV has been around since the 1950s, and it's one of the most common causes of childhood illnesses. So don't be too alarmed if your child does get infected with respiratory syncytial virus. It is a pretty common disease. Most kids do well. Of course, if you are have a child that is at high risk, they may not do as well as a child who is a low risk for RSV. But let's talk about symptoms, and then I'm going to talk to you about who is at high risk. So our symptoms of RSV is very much like a common cold. You have a runny nose, you can have a fever, a cough. In our young children, because this is primarily in our younger kids, they may not be able to tell you that they're not feeling well. So you can look at their appetite. How are they eating? How are they acting? And then that cough can often advance into wheezing. So if your child is wheezing, that is a reason to take your child in to a medical professional and be seen, whether it's their doctor or if it's late at night, you go into the emergency room. And whether your child has asthma or whether your child does not have asthma, anytime you hear wheezing, that means that your child is having difficulty breathing and you want to get them some help and get them some help immediately. So I said we were going to talk about which kids are at increased risk for RSV. Infants, so basically pretty much premature infants are at the highest risk. And this is who we used to see RSV is in our premature babies. And sometimes those premature babies are actually getting vaccinated against RSV, but it's really designed mostly for those really high risk infants. Also at risk are adults over the age of 65 and people who have asthma, because again, this goes down into your lungs. It causes the cough and the wheezing. So if you already have any sort of lung disease like asthma or COPD, you're going to be at increased risk for any respiratory disease like RSV or the flu or COVID. Also, if you have congestive heart failure, because your heart and your lungs, they work together. They're like best buddies. So if something's going on with your heart, it usually moves over also to start to impact your lungs. So folks with heart disease also tend to have lung disease, and those folks who have lung disease have an increased risk of developing RSV. But it can infect any child at any age, and it's usually, though, when the kids are less than 2. So what's the bottom line here about RSV is that it's present in our community. It's causing infection in our children. So please look out for it. If there's no vaccine for it for the average child, so you just want to be aware if your child starts to cough, again, starts to wheeze, develops a fever, you want to take them in to be seen. The best way to prevent RSV is, again, good hand washing, not bringing your kids around folks who you know are sick. And especially during this winter time, any cough to me is an infection until proven otherwise. So people who say, oh, they have allergies or there's other things going on, if you have a young baby, you want to kind of keep them away from those folks. Okay. All right. So we've talked about RSV, and now we're going to talk a little bit, just a quick update about COVID, because we're still in the midst of a pandemic, despite what everybody says. Our state public health state of emergency has been extended. It was supposed to end at this year, and it has now been extended until like mid to late January. So what does that tell you? That means that the protections around being in a state of, health emergency are still going to be there. And that means those folks who have insurance, that received insurance because we were in a medical health state of emergency, they'll continue to have insurance through January. Those who were having relief from eviction, that's going to stay in place until January. But do understand that some of those protections are coming to an end. We don't know where we're going to be in January around COVID or around flu or around RSV. So that state of emergency may get extended. But for now, we're looking at mid-January. So let's talk about COVID, because again, it's not over. And I really want, I'm hearing more and more cases of COVID individually from people that I know. But when you look at our numbers across the county, our numbers are still pretty good. We still have a low rate of infection, but so many people around me that I know of have COVID. So that means that it's still in our communities. It's still around us. And so we want to make sure that you really do think really carefully about where you're going, and think about wearing a mask if you're going indoors somewhere, particularly if you're going to be in a large group, that it's important to kind of have at least consider wearing a mask. So, and when we look at our COVID updates, and look at who's getting infected, and which age groups are getting infected, the age groups are basically 18 to 40, that same group that's always had the highest cases, continue to have the highest cases. Ages 18 to 40 are having the highest cases of COVID, followed very closely by those our elderly population. And that's important because remember, when COVID first hit, our elderly population was one of the population's hardest hit. And that is still showing to be true, that our younger folks, 18 to 40, have the highest cases, and it's followed by our elderly. And those who are actually dying from the disease are the elderly, right? And when we look at race and ethnicity, because that's really important for us to understand, we know that the cases are highest, and believe it or not, it's not the highest in the African American community. It's highest in our Pacific Islander community and our Native American community, followed by the African American community. So still communities of color, still having high rates of COVID infection. And when we look at who continues to die from COVID, we're looking at highest is the Pacific Islander group, our Asian Pacific Islander group, followed by African Americans. So it's still important to understand that we're still here in the midst of COVID, where people are still dying from COVID. If you have not already gotten your bivalent booster, this is going to be my plug right here. Please consider getting your bivalent booster shot. Okay, this is the newest booster shot. It protects against 2 different strains of coronavirus, the original strain and the newest strain, the Omicron BA.4 and BA.5, which are causing about 99.8 to 9% of all infections currently with coronavirus are caused by this Omicron variant. And the new bivalent booster targets that particular variant. So if you have not had the bivalent booster, this is a good time to get it. And you have to have not had any booster shots for the last 2 months. Now, if you've already had your bivalent booster shot, stop. You're done. You're good. But if you had a regular booster shot, then if it's been more than 2 months, you're now eligible to get the bivalent booster shot. okay? So if you get confused by it, you're not quite sure whether or not you should get that booster shot, talk to somebody on your dream team, your primary care provider, and ask them if you're eligible for the vaccine and if you should get the vaccine. All right, so we've talked about RSV, we talked about some COVID updates, and now we're going to talk about our food of the month, which I hope you have been enjoying. Now, as you know, Dr. Donna has been on a fast, and I bought persimmons prior to recognizing that I was on this fast, and I haven't even been able to try persimmons, but I'm finished with my fast in 5 days, and I already have all my persimmons just sitting there waiting. I can't wait to make some persimmon bread and persimmon cookies. And so hopefully you all are starting to get the persimmons. You're slicing them up and putting them in your salads. You're figuring out how to eat the persimmons. Remember, they're high in vitamin C, high in manganese, which is a mineral that helps to clot your blood, vitamin A and lutein, which helps your eye health, fiber, lowers your cholesterol, and then that peel is really high in antioxidants and what we call kind of anti-diabetics. And so it reduces the insulin resistance in your body. It helps to increase your insulin secretion, which may help to increase your body, how your body uses its energy. And it, of course, when we talk about antioxidants, we talk about anti-inflammation and thinking about how that helps to prevent several diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, asthma. All of these are sort of inflammatory disorders. And knowing that if you're having flavonoids, which is in the peel of the persimmon, that's the benefits that you get from eating that peel. So it's important that you don't just peel that persimmon and only get the pulp, but also eat that peel, because that peel has really awesome health benefits. Okay, so again, if you are eating persimmons, please put it on my Facebook page so we can see how you're eating and maybe get some ideas from you. All right, well, that's my show tonight. Just a really quick update to just encourage you to continue to protect yourself, to continue to remember that we're not completely over the pandemic. COVID is still in our communities. To remind you that there's a new virus kind of circulating, particularly in our children, called respiratory syncytial virus. The flu virus has not really hit our community hard, but in other parts of the country, it's hitting really hard. So we know it's going to make its way westward to us. So all of these respiratory viruses can be prevented in terms of their spread by making sure you wear a mask as often as possible. So we have as little transmission of flu as we've had these last couple of years, okay? So once again, thank you so much for keeping your appointment with the doctor. You have your appointment every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Talking with Dr. Donna. If you are not already a subscriber, please go over to my YouTube channel and hit subscribe and share this information with your family, your friends, and all your loved ones. Remember, we are building a generational health network to help to end premature death in the Black community. That's our mission. I don't want us to be at the top of disease categories any longer, okay? All right, so have a good night, and I will see you next week. Thanks again for watching. Take care. With Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr. Donna.